Joining us now is risk and behavioral scientist, Dr. Shada Chakraborty. Doctor, thanks for being with us this morning as we're learning of these new colonies in Italy and South Korea. Can you tell us more about these and how many people are infected and why we're seeing these cases pop up there?
So the virus started, as far as we can tell, in China. All of the precautions that were put into place, all the measures, delayed the spread of the virus. But as I've said all along, this virus was going to run its course. These are microorganisms. They can leave easily, and they're hard to trace. And the only way we find out that somebody is infected is once they begin to show the symptoms. Now we have diagnostics tests in place, which have been rolled out across the world. And so we're getting better at surveying this virus, seeing how it moves through the population, and getting better prepared for it, because we know it's going to come. We're seeing it now in Europe. What's happening in Italy is fascinating. It's a phenomenon referred to as secondary contagion. We can't say for certain exactly who patient zero was in Italy, nor can we trace it back to China necessarily. So this is a case that the academic community is watching very carefully to see exactly how the virus emerged and how it is rolling out in Italy and then perhaps through Europe. But now what we're seeing worldwide is community transmission, and you do see populations of people being infected. We are at the early stages of this being referred to as a pandemic, which again, we have known from the beginning this virus was going to run its course and this was likely going to happen.
But at the same time, as the search for patient zero continues in some of these new countries, quarantines are in place. What's that going to mean for border security within the EU and other parts of Europe as well as the Middle East?
This is a national security threat, just like other global risks. This type of threat does not respect national borders. So the same way sea level rise and the same way food security issues transcend any sort of political boundaries, the same thing with these viruses. We're not as concerned in countries that have really strong primary healthcare systems in place. The U.S. is prepared. It is going to be able to protect the citizenry here, but there's other countries that are not going to have the same sort of infrastructure in place, places like Africa. So it is of concern that the virus has emerged in Egypt and will roll out in due course through Egypt and through neighboring countries. Same is true for the Middle East. And ultimately, it doesn't even matter if we're neighboring countries or not, because we are so globalized at this point. And again, these are microorganisms. They will easily slip through the borders and the cracks. So we need to support each other, and the countries that don't have the infrastructure in place that some wealthier developed countries do, like the United States. Think about how we've gotten a grip on the seasonal flu. In the same way, once the 4 candidates that are currently on clinical trials as for vaccinations for the coronavirus, once they roll out in about 12 to 18 months, we're also going to be able to get a proper grip and a global grip on COVID-19. But what we're concerned about is it getting out into countries that don't have the infrastructure in place, where it could really cause much more damage.
You said 12 to 18 months. Is that really the timeline we're going to have to wait for this all to play out?
Think about, well, first of all, the virus itself may be with us for years. There's nothing to say that, one, it hasn't been here before. There's a chance we just never diagnosed it. It has the same symptoms as a common flu, as a common cold and as the flu. So it might have been in the world before, and now it's emerged again. Regardless, and it can persist. So we know that this may go away. It may be like the seasonal flu, where it shows up periodically, or it may actually stay with us. It may become one of those ever-present viruses that we deal with, just like any other disease state that we deal with as a global population. But that being said, the treatment protocols are moving rapidly, and a lot of money has been invested in it. That being said, we still can't see rollout of clinical drugs until the appropriate phases of trials have occurred. So even in its rush and even in the amount of investment that's been put in, we still cannot anticipate it actually being widely available for at least a year. So yes, trials are underway, but we're not going to have access to it widely for some time still.
So it seems like,
which is why surveillance and mitigation right now is so important.
Okay, surveillance of the disease and, of course, trying to quarantine those affected for the time being. Dr. Shada Chakraborty, thank you, as always, for your insight.